Bloom News Brief. More info at fullandbloom.com. Anthrax guitarist Scott Ian was interviewed on the Fred Minnick Show. Fred has a very cool show which focuses mostly on whiskey. A link to his channel can be found in the description. On meeting Lemmy Kilmister for the first time, Ian said, "The first whiskey I ever had was a Jack and Coke with Lemmy in 1985. He's my hero. I bumped into him at a bar in London. I was 21 and I didn't drink. I saw Lemmy and I offered to buy him a drink. He said, 'You're in my town. I'll buy you a drink. What are you having?' And I didn't even know how to answer that question. So I just said, 'I'll have whatever you're having.' And he was drinking Jack and Coke. So all of a sudden, I've got a whiskey in front of me, and I'm worried that I'm going to throw up on his white boots and get fired from heavy metal. It was awesome and it was horrible. Then 6 months later, we played our first ever headlining gig in London. Lemmy was there backstage, and he's saying hi to everybody, and he looks over at me and he goes, 'How are you feeling?' I said, 'You remember me?' He said, 'Yeah, I met you at the St. Moritz.' It's not as fancy as it sounds. It's like a dank basement in London. Lemmy said, 'We were drinking and all of a sudden you stopped speaking English.' I said, 'I hope I didn't do anything to offend you.' He said, 'No, I just couldn't understand what you were saying to me. And then you ran out of the bar. I figured you weren't feeling so good.' I said, 'I'm not that much of a drinker.' And he said, 'Yeah, I could tell.' On flying on a private plane with Motley Crue drummer Tommy Lee. This was in the late 2000s. VH1 used to do this thing called the Rock Honors, and it was kind of their version of the Hall of Fame. They would have the bands that were being inducted, and then they would have people play to pay tribute to the band that was being inducted. So when Kiss was being inducted, they put together a supergroup to play before Kiss was going to play. So it was me, Rob Zombie, Tommy Lee, Slash, Gilby Clarke from Guns N' Roses, Ace Frehley, which is really weird because we had Ace in a group that was paying tribute to Kiss. So when we were flying to Vegas, because that's where this whole thing was being shot, they flew us on a private jet. And we get on this little jet at Van Nuys Airport, and Tommy, who's obviously flown on private jets many times in his life, he immediately, as soon as we get up in the air, he says, "Hey, should we ask the pilot if he wants to do some tricks?" And everyone's just like, okay. So he bangs on the little door. The pilot opens it. Tommy's like, "You think we could do some tricks, like do the Weightless thing and whatever?" And the pilot's like, "All right, let me call into air traffic control," because he has to call in and let them know that we're going off the flight plan and go out over the desert so we can fuck around, basically. He gets the okay, and he's like, "We're going to do a real steep climb. When we get to the top of the parabolic arch and go back down, you're going to feel weightless for about 5 seconds. And I've known about this because they have that thing in Houston at NASA where they train the astronauts. It's called the vomit comet because they take them up and everyone throws up. And I'm totally into this at this point. I'm like, weightless? I'm in. So all of a sudden, we're climbing, and you're thrown back in your seat. You're going practically straight up, and you get to the top of this arch, and I didn't take my seatbelt off, but I loosened it a whole bunch, and suddenly I'm floating in my seat. Tommy's not even sitting down. He's in the aisle of the plane with a vodka cranberry, and he's floating in midair, and he didn't even spill his drink. I would go on record as saying it's the most rock star moment I've ever seen in my life. To listen to the entire interview, click the link in the description.